Projection.
It's Friday morning, and you know what that means. It's time for another edition of the Alabama Slam podcast. I'm your host, Corey Hanna, with my co-host.
What's up, guys? Patrick Akers.
And we'll get right into it, man. There's no use in wasting any time. Let's cover some of the bigger news from the week before we get into Rampage and Dynamite. Obviously, the big news from the weekend was Jeff Hardy's latest DUI. And what that could mean for his future career. It's a bummer to see that kind of thing happen. A lot of people said that he didn't get released from WWE because of his problems, but he's barely been in AEW for less than a few months, and he's already gotten a DUI. I think it was his third in 10 years, and it's not looking good for our man's Jeff. What you got on it, Patrick?
Yeah, I mean, I guess when I first saw the news, like everybody else, I think the word disappointed came to mind first. Just because this dude is such a talent, man. I mean, he is one of the most influential wrestlers of his generation. You can see that in the influences that he's had on the Young Bucks and even on a guy like Darby Allin. So to see him kind of toil with addiction and all these problems that he's had, it's just unfortunate. And, as a tendency online, a lot of times when this stuff happens, people try to play psychologists and try to say why he's doing it, why not. And, I think just the correct response to all this is that you just hope that this guy gets the help he needs, because we've seen so many wrestlers, unfortunately, have their lives cut short by this sort of thing. And I think the other takeaway from this is, thank God no one got hurt.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's one thing to be drinking and having a good time on your own time, but when you're behind the wheel of a vehicle like that, there's a lot more than yourself that could be damaged in the process.
And I think that's why some folks online have reacted in the way that they have. I think that this time being a DUI, his third DUI in a decade, some of that sympathy from the fans is kind of starting to wear off. And like you said, particularly when you decide to, it's one thing, like you said, to do drugs and, OD on your own, but it's another thing entirely to kind of get behind the wheel of a car like this, and put someone else's life in danger. Particularly, we've seen that happen with Sunny. She is facing trial right now because she was driving drunk and killed somebody.
Yeah.
So, like I said, hopefully he gets the help he needs. I think it was the correct response from AEW. From all the reports that I read, they really waited until they talked to Jeff before they put any kind of statement out, made any kind of decision. So, looks like he's going to get some help here, and hopefully it sticks this time.
Yeah, obviously it had immediate implications on the storylines for this week, because the Hardys were supposed to be in a ladder match with Jurassic Express and Young Bucks for the tag team title, and they quickly pulled the Hardys from the event. I don't think they were going to put the belt on the Hardys. Maybe they were. I don't know. What do you?
I think they were, but we'll get into why I think that later when we talk about the main event. But yeah,
Gotcha.
I think that they were setting up to put these belts on the Hardys, but we'll get there. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Just unfortunate, man. Like I said, hopefully he gets the help. He is taking everything, his personal life and what kind of a wreck it's been inside the ring. It's no question this dude is an all-time type of talent that, like I said, has influenced in a lot of ways this current generation of wrestlers that you see now. So,
yeah,
hopefully it works out for him.
Yep, for sure. Well, I think the other big news that just popped in the last 24 hours is it looks like all signs are pointing to Sasha Banks being released from her WWE contract. I haven't seen an official statement, but I've seen a bunch of different reports that say it looks like she's being let go. Which there's no word yet on Naomi, which I find a little odd. But, if she's being released, I guess she'll have, a 60-day non-compete, 90-day non-compete?
Yeah, I mean, the report that I saw said that her lawyers are kind of working that stuff out. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a 90-day, if it's a 120-day, if it's a year, whatever. She's going to be in AEW whenever that's off. You can only imagine that Tony Khan is licking his chops to sign her to a women's division that is much needed of some star power. And I mean, when in terms of star power in women's wrestling, does it get any bigger than her? I mean, Becky Lynch, Charlotte, maybe.
Maybe.
But she's on that level for sure.
Yeah, she's top 4. I mean, at one point they were calling and maybe even hinting, they had a big stable before I was watching wrestling a few years ago. Because wasn't she a big deal with like Bayley and Becky and Charlotte, like the 4 of them?
Yeah, so they called themselves the 4 Horsewomen. And really, when you're talking about pioneering women's wrestling here in the States in this modern era, there are people that have come before them for sure. But in terms of the modern era of wrestling here, it really does boil down here in the States to those 4 women, I think.
Yeah. Like you said, and we'll get to it a little later too, but the women's division in AEW needs a spark. You've seen a little bit of that with Ruby Soho, even though they did some strange booking with her. Like she came in hot and then had a weird sort of transition there, and it looks like they're starting to put Chris Statlander on another run like she was having before she tore her ACL over a year ago. But obviously Sasha Banks would put a very, very much needed jolt of energy into the women's division in AEW.
Oh yeah, she is. If Ruby Soho was at a 5 level in terms of star power coming over from WWE, this Sasha Banks is at a 12 or a 13. Like there's no comparison. So this would be a major shot in the arm for AEW, and you can only expect that if this is indeed what Sasha Banks wants to do, if she wants to continue her wrestling career, this is the place to do it.
Yeah. I think that's all I've got on that, unless you think there's anything else we need to touch on between that and the Jeff Hardy story.
Did you get a chance to see that Jay White promo I sent you?
I did, and that's where I was about to move into. The thing that struck me about it, and this is coming from a guy that's never watched anything in New Japan Pro Wrestling, was it was eerily quiet.
Well, they have COVID restrictions over there in Japan.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, so that's why, to kind of get, I guess, to kind of give a little bit of backstory here. So, Jay White and Okada had a championship match this past weekend. If listeners will remember, last week I foolishly said that I didn't think Jay White was going to beat Okada because Okada was the main guy in New Japan. Turns out that was fucking wrong. So they just put it on Jay White, and so Jay White cut a scathing promo both in the ring and then at the press conference afterwards. And if you've watched it, if you haven't seen it, it's on YouTube. If you have seen it and you were kind of confused about why he was trying to get the crowd to chant something. So in Japan, they have COVID restrictions that prohibit fans in any kind of live attendance event to cheer or chant or do anything like that for fear of the droplets. Now, that seems extreme here in America, but you have to put yourself in an Asian culture. They've dealt with things like bird flu and several kind of pandemics like this that they take these things way more seriously. So that's why he was trying to get the crowd to chant. And apparently during the match, they did actually cheer and chant and do all that kind of stuff, which is what he was referring to. So
Gotcha.
So what were your other thoughts on that?
There's a lot of cussing.
Yeah, they can do that. They can do that in New Japan too.
Okay, so I was like, they get to just say "fuck" whenever they want to on TV over there, because I guess I don't know translation or something.
That's what it seems like. Yeah,
he was just dropping the fuck fuckity fuck, and I was like, well, this is different. But yeah, dude, I mean, that was besides him walking out very briefly in AEW. Like, he's really good with the microphone, but obviously they were setting up Hangman Page versus Okada, right? So then they take the belt off Okada, and now Jay White says he's not going to face Hangman Page. I was just a little torn on where I'm supposed to be going with all this.
Yeah, I think we're kind of leaving it up. I think there's still a lot of mystery going into Forbidden Door here, and we're only a couple weeks out, which I kind of like. Which also makes sense. You know, Forbidden Door, I think they've already sold out the United Center. Didn't they sell it out within like a day?
Oh, I don't know.
I think so. I think they sold it out within a day. So like, you don't have to advertise to get more people in the building, and you can have all these surprises go all the way up to the Dynamite before Forbidden Door, because the only thing left you have to sell is to people at home trying to buy the pay-per-view. So I kind of like that we're still playing our cards close to the chest here in terms of Forbidden Door. But like you said, man, and I haven't seen a ton of Jay White matches. I didn't actually see the match between Jay White and Okada. I can only imagine that it was probably bonkers awesome, just because those two guys, from everything that I've seen, and I've seen a lot more of Okada than I have of Jay White, so there's no reason to suspect it wasn't a great match. But like you said, man, Jay White, like we talked about last week, in terms of great wrestlers, like they have this charisma about them, they have this sense of conviction about them, and Jay White right now is at the top of his game. And just that promo alone really solidifies him as one of the best talkers in wrestling right now. And also, another thing it did is, you know, in terms of promos, what a promo should really do, it should advance the story forward. It shouldn't just be a way for a guy to kind of get himself over and do a bunch of lip service to himself, which Jay White does in this case because he is a heel, but also he tells a story right in this promo, which is, he calls himself the Catalyst, which means everything in pro wrestling revolves around me. You know, you and I love AEW, which is why we've started a podcast about it. And basically, if you listen to his entire promo, his layout of the story is, that shit ain't happening without me. You know, if I don't beat Kenny Omega's ass here in New Japan, he doesn't run away to AEW and start it with all his friends and all his buddies to create what you guys love now. Like, everything around wrestling right now revolves around me, which is, one, in kayfabe, is entirely true, right? Like, if speaking internally in terms of kayfabe here, like, he beats Omega leaves. Hangman can't really get over in New Japan because of, you know, he plays second fiddle to other people in the Bullet Club, which was part of his entire story for these past couple years going up to be the champion, right? Is that he had an inferiority complex about his standing amongst the rest of his friends. So, and kayfabe-wise, Jay White's completely right, and it makes it, you know, who knows what they're going to do at Forbidden Door. Do they do a tag team match with Okada and Hangman versus Jay White and Adam Cole? Do they do Jay White and Hangman? You know, Adam Cole on Dynamite said that Okada wasn't even going to be at Forbidden Door. You know, is that a lie? Is that the truth? I would imagine that they're saving this Okada pop to be like a week before the pay-per-view, probably, because if you don't have to sell it out to the arena because it's already sold out, you are making an assumption, which is probably the correct assumption, that a lot of AEW fans already know who Okada is. So you don't have to do a lot like what you're doing with Will Ospreay right now, where you're trying to familiarize a fan base with who these people are, which is what they've been doing with Jay White as well. Jay White, even though he's great, it really isn't a big of a name as what Okada is, which is why you've seen Jay White kind of circle around the AEW universe here for a little bit. Okada, you don't have to do that, primarily because he has such a relationship with Kenny Omega and their feud that they had that was legendary. So you could just, I would fully suspect if Okada's going to be a part of the pay-per-view, the last Dynamite before Forbidden Door, he's probably going to be the last image we see on the screen, would be my bet. But, man, yeah, if you haven't seen this Jay White promo, go check it out. It's awesome.
Yeah, you sent that to me earlier, and I managed to get a chance to watch it. It was definitely intriguing, and I'm interested to see where they go. I think you've got a pretty good theory about they'll probably do a tag team of some sort, even though I'm pretty much over the Hangman Page and Adam Cole going at each other sort of storyline. But
having Jay White in the middle of it, he's playing such a patronizing little prick to Adam Cole, and it kind of is. It's kind of hilarious, like, especially in that promo where he's just like, "Oh, you won the Owen Hart, like, good job," and does the little clap with the shitting grin on his face. And then, you know, in Dynamite, he's like, "Yeah, you're not getting this either." Like, and I've said this a lot, and it's probably unfair to Adam Cole because he is great in his own right. But if you were to just plug all the holes that Adam Cole has in his game, what you would end up with is just Jay White, right?
Yeah.
Like, do you agree with that assessment, or just in terms of like body type, in terms of how he looks, how he moves?
Yeah,
it really
probably.
is. Yeah, he really, like, Jay White is kind of the souped up version of Adam Cole.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing that Cole can do that Jay White can't do. They're both great on the mic.
Well, and clearly they're playing up there, or at least they did last night, that Cole thinks they have a better relationship than they probably do, or at least, with he and Jay White. Because he was like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Or whatever he was saying. So, yeah.
Forbidden Door is going to be awesome, man.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fun. What's that, the 26th?
26, yeah.
Yeah, so that's 2 weeks away.
And like I said, I think we're still seeing they're still playing a lot of their cards close to the chest. And I think just in terms of a showcase of what AEW can do and introducing New Japan to probably a ton of folks who are unaware with the product, in terms of just pro wrestling matches, this pay-per-view is probably going to be gearing up to be one of the most incredible, just in terms of match quality pay-per-views we've seen here in the States in a while.
Yeah, when they first announced this, I'm going to be honest and say that I wasn't super excited. And that's only because I don't really know any of the people from New Japan. But, after what I've seen out of Will Ospreay the last two matches, I think that'll be pretty fun with where I think they, or what they did, they teased and then they confirmed who he's going to be wrestling at the pay-per-view. But we'll get more of my thoughts on that guy in a little bit. But yeah, I'm excited about it. I think it'll be fun. It's another reason to sit around and watch wrestling on a Sunday. But yeah, I think we're ready to move to Rampage, unless you've got anything else you want to say about the promo.
No, I don't. Let's do it.
All right, man. So Rampage kicked off. Eddie Kingston and Jake Hager were already in the ring. They don't waste a lot of time on that show. They try to get 4 matches or 3 matches and some sort of confrontation in there, usually in an hour, and that doesn't give you a ton of time. So, more Eddie versus Jericho and his bunch kind of deal. We've said it once and we'll say it 1,000 times. We're a Team Eddie podcast over here, so it's always good to see screen time from him. The match itself was fine. I was honestly a little surprised that they put Eddie over Hager, but it was a good match, I thought. Crowd absolutely eats up everything that Eddie Kingston does, and you can't deny that they absolutely love him.
Where is he at, you think, in terms of crowd reaction? Is he top 3? I mean, just off the top of my head, I think Moxley probably gets a bigger reaction. CM Punk gets a bigger reaction. But, I mean, he's up there with Bryan Danielson, right?
I mean, he's got to be. I mean, you could say Cole, but the only reason Cole gets that sort of pop is because of the crowd participation in his entrance. And
they don't, it's a crowd participation in the entrance. I feel like during the match, they don't chant Adam Cole's name the way there's Eddie chants.
Right.
Several times during any of his matches, yeah. There's Eddie chants when he's standing on the apron, like just not managing somebody, Yeah,
that's what I was just going to say. Eddie could come down there just to be ringside for a match with one of his buddies, and they're going to start chanting Eddie. Yeah, I mean, give me more Eddie Kingston. I don't have a ton to say about the match itself. Just give me more Eddie. What did you think overall?
The match was fine. I mean, it's, I wasn't surprised they put Eddie over. You're not going to kill that guy's momentum, particularly to a guy like Jake Hager, who is sporadically seen on television. Right. I would just have to imagine that they're waiting to pull the trigger on Eddie holding any kind of title, because the first title he's going to win in AEW is going to be the World Championship. I would think. Otherwise, you would have already given them the TNT title or made him a tag team champion with somebody. Like, I think they're doing something similar to what they did with Hangman, where they're building up their next underdog babyface, and he doesn't need that much building. Obviously, he's already there with the fans, so you're just kind of buying your time to when it happens. But yeah, I would suspect the first championship he wins in AEW is the world title.
Yeah.
And yeah, just in terms of crowd, like I think it's probably Moxley and it's probably CM Punk, and that's it. I don't know if there's a guy that's getting bigger. Probably someone like MJF, but for the opposite, the boos that he's getting. Although when MJF comes back, like I said last week, that dude's gonna blow the roof off the place as a babyface.
Yeah.
You're still seeing MJF signs and shirts in AEW, like he's not going anywhere.
Yeah. Wardlow's getting a good pop these days. I don't know if it's any better than,
It's not
than
that.
Eddie's.
Yeah, it's not that.
Yeah. I mean, you're right, though. I think, and there's nobody getting a bigger one. He's top 3 for sure. It's got to be. I say let's move on to the next one. We've got a lot of stuff to cover. There weren't many sleepers from this last week. So Red Velvet versus Chris Statlander. Chris Statlander gets the win. Again, I mentioned it to you before we started recording. I think they're gonna set her up for a run, if not for the TV title against Cargill. I think they'll put a belt on her at some point in the next year. She was getting a really good push before she tore her ACL over a year or so ago, and the crowd seems to be digging what she's putting out there. And I mentioned last week on the show, she's one of my favorites in the women's category. They put on a good match. They keep saying that she and Red Velvet were good friends, and I don't know if I just hadn't paid a ton of attention or whatever, but I don't know if that was supposed to be like they're good friends behind the scene, because they obviously hadn't done a lot like on screen together. But you got to see, Velvet as part of the baddie crew or whatever, and then Chris Statlander picked up the win. Give me your thoughts on that whole match and situation there.
One of the things that I thought was, as Statlander was coming down the ramp, they said, "Oh, she's got a new lease on life. She's rebranded herself." Has she really rebranded herself, other than just not calling herself an alien? She looks exactly the same, except the ring gear is black, and she doesn't do the little bops on the nose anymore. She's still doing the little eye makeup stuff, and she looks kind of exactly the same.
It's a little different. Like the eye makeup isn't like green, and she had the green hair thing going for a while, and they said that she was from the Andromeda Galaxy or whatever. But yeah, they're not doing a ton different. I mean,
she's always been talented.
Yeah.
Even when she was doing the idiotic alien stuff, she was always talented. I guess she's also not friends with the Best Friends anymore. Has that group just completely disbanded? What have we done with that?
Well, I was going to ask, like, where is Chuck Taylor? Is he injured and I just didn't hear about it, or what's happening there?
I have no idea.
And then Wheeler Utah came out with who did he come out with last night? He came out with somebody different that was not the Best Friends.
Oh, to make the save?
Yeah.
Oh, it was Santana.
Yeah.
During that, yeah.
So,
but I mean, we have storyline reasons for why he's not with the Best Friends anymore.
Sure, yeah.
Which in terms of like Statlander and Danhausen, I guess we've just, like we mentioned last week, sometimes these things just kind of, they don't get followed through. They just peter out.
But I wonder if Chuck's injured, because they put Trent. They've started the Roppongi Vice thing up again. So, I can't think of any other reason why he wouldn't be around.
Yeah, he's probably injured, but Statlander's always been talented. That AEW women's division needs as many stars as they can get, and so let's do something with Statlander. Jade Cargill looks awesome. She has a great look about her. She's a great personality. She has a charisma. The biggest weakness there is just the match quality isn't that great, which you could probably get away with at a place like WWE where the match quality really doesn't matter that much. But are you going to see AEW fans start to give her the wrong kind of heat, which is, instead of the heat of boo, we don't like you, is the heat of, man, I wish you would get off my television screen because you suck. Could that happen with her getting more screen time and she's getting better in the ring, but it isn't up to par with some of the other women in that division. So that would be my only concern there.
I kind of wonder if they'll put the TV belt on Statlander because at some point somebody's got to beat Cargill because she's undefeated.
Yeah, and even like, say for instance, you have somebody like Sasha Banks get signed to AEW. There's no reason why she would be competing for the TBS title and not for the women's world title. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like the TBS title is a secondary type of title, so you would need somebody like a Statlander or like a Serena Deeb or one of those other type of women that are actually going to be the one that, because somebody's going to have to beat her unless your plans are to unify the TBS title and the women's title at some point, which I guess
Yeah.
you could do and do away with the second women's title, but you just made the thing like a couple months ago, so you wouldn't. I don't know if you
Right.
want to run in that direction right now. So
Yeah. But yeah, I think we can move on to the next one. To close out Rampage, they had FTR and Trent Beretta versus Aussie Open and Will Ospreay, which for me was my introduction to Will Ospreay, having not watched New Japan at all. I'd seen he's one of the guys, like I'd seen his name on Twitter a lot, like people that I knew outside of like AEW, you know, like Danhausen gets talked about on Twitter a lot. And then he eventually signed, you know, with AEW. And then I've seen Will Ospreay's name pop up a lot, more so than like somebody like Okada or whatever, or Jay White. But this dude has lived up to the hype for me so far as a dude who was just on my radar and I'd never seen wrestle. That was a hell of a match. And they're, you know, I think we mentioned it last week, but they're starting to step up their game a lot on Friday nights. They have to, because the ratings for Friday night are not great. The numbers are not great for Rampage, but they're really putting on a lot better shows than they were a few months ago. I thought this one was a banger. You know, I've come around to FTR. I wasn't big on them in the beginning when they started in AEW, but it's kind of hard to deny those guys these days. And I've always been a Trent fan since he's been in AEW. And I did a little reading this morning and saw that he and Ospreay have some history together. So it's not that difficult to put the two of them in the ring together and just watch them get after it. But this was definitely a banger and a good way to finish off the show for me.
yeah, and you know they're really putting a lot of stock here, and like you said, exposing people like you who haven't seen a lot of Will Ospreay. Really showing what he can do. Now, if you rummage around on the internet, there's a lot of opinion out there about Will Ospreay, particularly from a couple years ago, where he was doing a lot more high-flying, acrobatic type stuff, and he kind of got a reputation as being just a flippy-dippy kind of guy. But man, he has really underwent a change in terms of his physicality in the ring. That finisher with that elbow, running elbow strike, just looks vicious and looks awesome.
Yeah.
And he still has that like cocky ass arrogance about him too, and just his reversals, his escapes, his athletic ability. I mean, it's all there, and his look too with that flowing jacket. I mean, those fucking guys when they came out just looked awesome as shit.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you said, that was a banger of a match, and then, you know. I guess if we want to jump forward here in a little bit, since we're talking about Ospreay, that Dax Harwood Ospreay singles match from Dynamite, also a banger. I mean, what a fucking match that was.
Yeah, that was my favorite of the night for sure last night.
Yeah, and you know, just those two guys, trading the chops back and forth. Is there anything more satisfying in wrestling than just hearing a good chop on somebody?
It's tough.
Like, and I think part of the reason, if you want to dig down into the psychology of it, why chops resonate so much with fans is just because we know what that feels like, right? Like we've either been hit in the chest or we've done a belly flop into the pool, and we know what that sting feels like. We really don't know what a power bomb feels like, because people don't fall on their back routinely. But like and if you're a wrestling fan and you were a teenager, everybody's a teenager. You fucking chopped your friends when you're watching wrestling. Everybody knows how much that hurts. So it immediately, like when you hear that pop, when Dax Harwood is laying in those chops, and I mean he's probably the best at it right now, and sings throughout the entire damn arena and just explodes through the TV screen. Like, you feel it in your chest, man. Like, it's awesome. And these two guys, yeah, they have great chemistry. What a turn for Dax Harwood here. I mean, you can make a case. He's putting together a Wrestler of the Year type of resume in terms of just match quality. He's now has the reputation for AEW to where, hey, we need a good match. Let's throw Dax out there with whoever. Doesn't matter. It can be Ospreay. It can be CM Punk. We know we're going to get 15, 20 minutes of awesome action, and the fans are going to be behind it all the way. So, also, if anybody had any kind of qualms or any sort of hesitation that some of these New Japan guys wouldn't be known to AEW audiences, there was a 50-50 Ospreay Harwood chant that broke out.
Yeah.
So, like, these people clearly know something. And the same with Tanahashi, which we'll get to in a bit. I mean, when he came out, he also got a huge pop. So, and I think I was kind of worried about that too. Will some of these AEW fans know who these New Japan guys are? I think that's completely out of the question now. I think these AEW fans are going to be geared up for this Forbidden Door pay-per-view, and they've done their own research apparently about who these guys are, just hearing their names, because AEW really hasn't done that great of a job outside of Ospreay and Jay White about educating the audience about who a lot of these people are. But yeah, Ospreay, man, I would love to see him in AEW full time whenever his New Japan runs up. He's still relatively young.
Yeah, that's what I figured. He doesn't look like he's been through a lot damage-wise, so I keep thinking, the last just week, and the same thing. I'm like, well, I wonder what this dude's got left in his contract, and if he jumps ship and come over to AEW or whatever. Obviously, he gets over real well. So
absolutely. One other point I wanted to make out, because I saw also this complaint online about AEW having too many belts on their show and having too many belts recognized. I don't know how you feel about this, but I think that's just a crazy complaint to have. One of the criticisms you can level towards WWE is that, literally the words WWE stands for World Wrestling Entertainment, but there is, in the WWE universe, quote unquote, there is no wrestling that happens outside of that universe. Meaning that, CM Punk drops a Ring of Honor thing in his pipe bomb, but it's never really explicitly stated that any type of professional wrestling happens outside the confines of a WWE ring. And one of the things that AEW has run in the direction of is they just run the opposite way, to where we have the AAA belts being on FTR and being recognized as a classic legendary promotion in Mexico. You had Will Ospreay coming out with the Rev Pro, which is a British organization. You've had New Japan and the IWGP heavyweight title be actually defended on AEW television. So, building up this education to the fans that maybe aren't aware of all these other types of promotions that happen in the world is only going to help AEW, and it's going to help these other promotions as well. A rising tide lifts all ships, so to speak. So, you don't want to get too crazy with it to where every single person that comes in has some kind of belt, but having Ospreay walk out with a belt, having FTR walk out with the Ring of Honor and AAA belts, having Jay White come in with the IWGP belt, I think it just adds to this sense of there's wrestling that happens all over the world, particularly as the rise of the internet has given to this kind of globalizing of our culture, to where there's 15-year-old kids watching animes on Netflix. You know what I mean? We're exposed to all types of entertainment from all sorts of different countries. So I think it's cool. I think that's a kind of a idiotic complaint to level against AEW having too many belts. But what's your thoughts on that, just quickly?
Yeah, I think I mentioned last week when they introduced the All Atlantic tournament, I was like, I don't know if they need that belt in there. I do remember, now that I've said it, talking about, I thought that they were going to do a triples title, because that's been a rumor for months, and that's where I figured it was headed. But the way they've got the All Atlantic tournament set out, I think is probably going to be cool, because it's not just people from the States. We had Miro versus Ethan Page last night, So I think that was cool. And they haven't said who from New Japan were in that bracket, but I part of me thinks it's getting a little too diluted. But on the other hand, I see what you're saying, like about it being educational for other people and learning more about the other promotions and stuff. So it doesn't bother me all that much. And I can see your side of it. So
Yeah, and a lot of these, a lot of these titles they don't belong to AEW. So like you could have them be defended, but I don't really see the critique of saying that, if you want to say the All Atlantic title is too much of one, well, that's, I could see that is an AEW owned title, but like having the Rev Pro title be there, having the Ring of Honor titles be there, having the AAA titles be there, I don't know. I think it's kind of cool in the fact that it gives this kind of worldwide sense to this promotion. I think it makes AEW feel bigger in a way, because then you can go and you can look at the history of the AAA titles and look at the history of AAA. If you're watching, be like, I don't really know what AAA is, and well, you can just go down the rabbit hole, and then it just helps add to this credibility of the wrestling that's happening inside of AEW ring, I think. So
yeah,
I would like to see more of it, honestly.
Yeah,
of this worldwide sense. That was, like I said, that was always my biggest complaint when I was watching WWE. Is that you're like, man, it doesn't feel like the world here,
Yeah, they don't acknowledge that anybody else exists.
Right.
I say let's circle back a little bit, go back to the star of the show. It started off with the hair versus hair match with Jericho versus Ortiz, former member of the Inner Circle. I was kind of thinking this might be the time to cut Jericho's hair, but then he's got his whole Fozzy thing happening, and I don't think that they would do that to him. So anyway, obviously Jericho gets the win. Ortiz starts cutting his own hair off, and then went backstage, I guess, and shaved the rest off. But the big news here was, quote unquote, Fuego del Sol coming out to the rescue, and then taking off the mask, and it's Sammy under there. So are they basically just getting the Inner Circle back together without Santana and Ortiz, and then adding all the other goons in the Jericho Appreciation Society, and now also Ty Conti?
Yeah, I think I was sort of surprised when I saw Sammy come back out to help Jericho get the win, because I don't know if it registered this way to you, but to me, having Sammy link back up with Jericho is really an admission that this Jericho Appreciation Society isn't working in the way that we thought it would. And that the guys like Matt Menard and Angelo Parker and Daniel Garcia, even though they've pushed Daniel Garcia, I mean, he's been in multiple main events at this point, it seems like they're still not getting that reaction out of the crowd. And one thing you can't say about Sammy is that he doesn't get a reaction from the crowd. I mean, he's one of the most booed guys on the roster. So,
it turned on him big time.
Yeah, absolutely. And he gets nuclear levels of heat, particularly now that you've paired him up with Ty Conti. So, yeah, I think having them link back up is just an admission that this isn't going the way that we thought it would, and it needs another spark here. And I don't think that is necessarily the wrong call. Sammy really wasn't doing anything either. And so if you need an extra spark here, if you're going to keep this Jericho Appreciation Society, if you're going to keep Chris Jericho having these lackeys here late in his career, then put the two of them back together. And like I said, when they had that last, when they were walking back up at the ramp, there was only three guys walking up at the ramp. It was Sammy, it was Hager, and it was Jericho. The other guys were nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's that admission there. In terms of just the match, I mean, it had its moments, right? It had a really awesome near fall there with Eddie Kingston hitting Jericho with that back fist. I thought that was the 1-2-3 there. And like I said, Jericho, he's one of the best ever, man. So he's going to, in terms of those near falls, I mean, he can do it up right to the last second to play on people's emotions like that. And then, yeah, Ortiz getting his hair shaved and just screaming blood and guts into the into the microphone as like his head is bleeding a little bit and he's cutting the hair off and it's falling. That was just awesome. Or I've said this before, maybe not during our podcast, but I know I've said it to you off mic, is if you were to look at some of the guys who have improved the most since AEW's gotten on television weekly, Santana and Ortiz are up there. I think Santana and Ortiz and Britt Baker are probably the three people who have improved the most if you go back and watch those early Dynamites to where they're at now. So, and I love Santana, I love Ortiz, and, you know, this setup more into the Jon Moxley Tanahashi thing too as well. So,
yeah, and this is one thing that I enjoyed about last night is, you know, sometimes we've had problems with AEW just expecting people to know certain things. Was they actually did a short package on Tanahashi, and then Moxley, when he grabbed the mic, started out with basically giving a little backstory as well on Tanahashi. So it wasn't like they just threw you into the universe and expected everybody to know. I thought it was great that they actually did do a little video package. You know, we don't always get that out of AEW, so I did enjoy that they did that for that confrontation last night.
And doing that video package, it's and bringing Tanahashi out to do a live promo is twofold, right? Because if someone like you isn't that aware of Tanahashi, you get to have the little prepackaged video, and then you get to have Tanahashi come out in front of a smart crowd to where he stands in the middle of the ring with Jon Moxley, and he looks like he belongs, right? And you have the crowd doing a Tanahashi chant. So immediately it registers with people, if you don't know who Tanahashi is, oh, this dude's a big deal. I guess it does make sense that he's going up against somebody like Jon Moxley, who I have a lot of knowledge about in terms of how he's placed on the card. But going back to the Jericho thing I was talking about, I thought the end of the Tanahashi-Moxley segment was just convoluted, where you just have Jericho and his guys come out and beat down, and then Jericho just announces another match. There was a better way to go about that. I think that was completely convoluted in the worst kind of way.
Yeah. Where are they going? I don't even remember where he said they're what's happening.
It's a 6-man. I don't even remember. Eddie Kingston's involved in it at Forbidden Door, and they have another New Japan guy that Chris Jericho has history with. Because that's Jericho, right, after he left WWE, was in New Japan for a handful of years before AEW started.
Gotcha.
And like Excalibur said, Jericho and Tanahashi main evented Wrestle Kingdom, which is, if you're not aware, that's kind of New Japan's WrestleMania that they have in January. So
yeah, I've heard about Wrestle Kingdom. Excuse me, quite a bit, but I don't know any. I haven't never watched anything like that. So I just assumed it was the WrestleMania of New Japan. So I've got Miro and Ethan Page next for the All Atlantic tournament. Miro is super over these days. I think people missed him being off TV because he was out for probably 8 or 9 months with that neck injury after losing the TNT title to Sammy. And he's come back committed. And, dude always put on good matches, but he's pretty fucking dominant over Ethan Page. It was nice to see him wrestle and not just be like second fiddle to Scorpio Sky. And it was competitive. They put on a damn good match. But yeah, Miro is real over. More than I thought he would be coming back.
Yeah, I think too, if I'm not mistaken, I think Miro has like a Twitch channel. All these dudes now have Twitch channels where they play games. So I think he has a pretty popular one. So like, it is tough if you have a Twitch channel and people like you to then go on television and kind of portray yourself as a bad guy heel, you know what I mean? Like and not that he can't be a monster when he's on AEW television, because he looks like a fucking monster. He is a monster. But you're just gonna have people cheer you, particularly if they haven't seen you for a while. they're gonna want to cheer you. And so I fully expected him to get cheered, and he did. And it's like you said, it's good to see Ethan Page finally do something on television. I think that guy has some potential. It's just I don't know, like if you're putting up against Miro, you're not gonna have him beat Miro, right? So I don't know why. Maybe a better spot. I know you have the House of Black is feuding with Death Triangle right now, but maybe there would have been some way where you could have switched something and Ethan Page would have went up against Penta and got the win so he could be at the Forbidden Door thing. But I don't really know what they're doing with Ethan Page, unless he's just going to continue to toil in this kind of lower mid card where he cuts a good promo and it just stands beside Scorpio Sky. Obviously, at some point you would think Page and Sky are going to have a feud. It's just kind of natural. That's how you naturally kind of break up tag teams, is they turn on each other. But Miro, Miro, has he competed? Has he had a shot for the AEW World Title yet? I don't remember.
No,
I don't think
remember
he has.
He was the TV title holder for a while.
Yeah, he was the TNT back when the TNT title actually meant something and was doing good work with it. Because he missed all of Hangman's reign, because a Hangman Miro feud would have been really cool to see.
Yeah.
And it's good that you have that on the shelf. You can circle back around to those two guys at some point. But yeah, Miro has not lost his standing with the fans whatsoever.
Yeah. It was cool to see. I figure. I mean, who do you think ends up with the All Atlantic belt? Do you think it'll be Miro? Probably.
No, my money would be on Pac.
Oh, yeah.
I think particularly, during Pac's match, they mentioned that they're the number one, AEW's the number one promotion in Great Britain. So it would make sense to reward that and put a title on Pac, because he needs it, right? I don't know if Miro needs it right now. And it helps this being a four-way match at Forbidden Door, because he doesn't have to be the one that eats the pin. You can have one of these New Japan guys eat the pin.
Sure.
So, yeah, my money would be on Pac. Pac or Malachi. I could see either one of those guys coming away with it.
Yeah. God, that's going to be a hell of a match.
It'll be somebody in that faction, though. It'll be up for grabs in that Death Triangle, House of Black feud that they have going with. That All Atlantic title will be in there somewhere.
Yeah. There's going to be some fucking bangers on that pay-per-view for sure.
Oh, I'm telling you, man. I have high hopes for this pay-per-view. I really do. I think you're going to see some of the best wrestling in a long time, top to bottom through this thing. And I think this is a perfect place for both of these companies to really make a mark, because a lot of these Japanese fans are going to be watching this too, And I would expect you to have some 50-50 booking. There's going to be some of your favorites that you like in AEW that are going to lose to New Japan guys. And there's going to be some New Japan guys that lose to AEW guys. So it'll be 50-50. I fully suspect Jon Moxley is going to beat Tanahashi. I think that's why. I think when they were making out this Forbidden Door thing and this CM Punk injury happened, Tanahashi was probably already going to be a part of Forbidden Door in some type of way, because he's just a huge star for that company. But I think the reason he's being in this match with Jon Moxley is because he's going to... New Japan, that was the biggest guy where Tony Khan said, who's your biggest guy that can afford to lose at the pay-per-view, and Tanahashi was the name. So I would expect that's why that's probably why you didn't see Moxley and Okada. That's probably why Hangman called out Okada, because Hangman could afford to lose, because it only helped. Hangman's big thing right now is he just puts on awesome ass matches. So if he goes out and has a fucking 5-star match with Okada and still loses, nobody's really going to care, because there's no titles on the line anyway. So I think that's the whole impetus behind this booking, is who can we afford to have lose to these New Japan guys, and who can these New Japan guys afford to have lose to our top stars in order to help build up more storylines for the future. And also, I would expect this thing, just based off the fact that they sold out the United Center as fast as they did, and I would suspect that these pay-per-view buys are going to be right up there with some of the biggest buys that AEW has seen. This won't be the last time you see a New Japan AEW crossover.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're probably right about that. I say let's get into the women's match real quick before we touch on the tag team main event. So there was Toni Storm versus Britt Baker. And I'm not gonna lie, I did not see this match. I saw the last few seconds of it. I left the room briefly and came back and saw it. I'm notoriously not a Britt Baker fan, so I took the opportunity to step away for a second.
You're not the only person that shares that sentiment, by the way.
Yeah.
Just based off stuff that I've read online. There's quite a bit of fans like you out there.
Yeah. I did find it a little shocking because she's, one of the bigger faces. I didn't know where they were going to go with it, but I did find it a little shocking that she was defeated in the match. And then obviously they're going to set up the Toni Storm versus Thunder Rosa. Thunder comes out at the end of the match. I don't know. You did say off mic though that it was a good match. So just give us your thoughts.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was fine. Yeah, it was kind of rough there in the beginning. I think Britt Baker's biggest appeal is her work on the mic and just her look. Her biggest strength is not her in-ring skill set. And I think in terms of where she's at with some of the other women, she's not up there in terms of in-ring quality. She's not up there with somebody like a Jamie Hayter or a Toni Storm or even a Thunder Rosa. So yeah, I wasn't surprised that Toni Storm went over because I think that division needs some kind of life injected into it. And Thunder Rosa's title reign has suffered from the same exact thing that Hangman's title reign suffered from, which is when Hangman was champion, and you might disagree with this, I don't know, he never felt like the most important thing on the show in that men's division. You had the CM Punk and the MJF stuff that was going on, so he kind of, the Bryan Danielson stuff, he kind of fell into the back burner, and this same exact thing has happened with Thunder Rosa. She doesn't feel as big of a deal as somebody like Jade Cargill. She doesn't feel as big of a deal as somebody like Toni Storm or Britt Baker, which is why they're constantly positioned where they're at on the show. I mean, Thunder Rosa has had one match last week against Marina Shafir, which was it was so bad that people were accusing Thunder Rosa of sandbagging Marina Shafir. I don't know if you saw that thing that went on Twitter. It's pretty damning evidence out there, if you ask me. But Thunder Rosa put out a tweet, and looks like her and Marina Shafir are cool, I guess. Let's just get the belt off Thunder Rosa. Let's just go ahead and cash in our chips. Just admit that this hasn't gone the way we wanted it to go. Let's give the belt to Toni Storm and let's see what she can do with it. Thunder Rosa, and all of this isn't Thunder Rosa's fault. We talked about this last week. A lot of it is the booking, but yeah, let's just give it to Toni Storm and let's see what she can do and try to buy our time until we get until we build up Statlander more. Maybe if we get a Sasha Banks that comes in, Sasha Banks and Toni Storm, that'd be a hell of a fucking rivalry. So wait and see that, and who knows? AEW could sign some more women here in the next few months. I don't know who's really out there. One thing that impressed me, the Willow Nightingale, her little segment with Stokely Hathaway in the back. She has a ton of personality. I'm not really familiar with her. I know she's more of a Ring of Honor person.
I was wondering who that was.
Yeah, but her little interaction, she showed a little bit of personality there. So let's see what she can do. Maybe she's somebody that they want to invest in for the future. Yeah, like we talk about it every week, though. This division needs as much help as it can get.
Yeah. Well, I say let's get into the last match, and then we can.
Well, what did you think about the Wardlow stuff?
Time.
We kind of skipped over the Wardlow.
Oh, we did skip over
the
I'm
Wardlow
sorry.
stuff. Was
it was cool. Yeah, I liked it. It was fun to watch him pin 4 and 5 people at a time.
Although, can I nitpick here just a little bit?
Sure. Yeah.
He didn't pin 4 or 5 people at a time. You have to count as a pin, and this is getting in the weeds here, but this is kind of my personality, so this is what it is for the listeners out there. The back of your shoulders have to be on the mat.
Ah, that's true.
So if you pile a bunch of people up and you just put your hands on the back of one, all you're really doing is pinning the one guy at the bottom, or if any of the other guys happen to have their shoulders on the back of the mat. I don't know if this registered with you the way it registered with me, but it seemed like the crowd was kind of dead for this segment. And I think part of the reason is because they were so confused as to what was going on because all 20 guys were on the apron at first. Wardlow runs up and hits 4 of them, and then they're just announced like, oh, plaintiff number 12, and all these dudes are eliminated. And you're just like, what? Well, it's not a battle royal. They didn't go over the top rope. Like, what the fuck? They just have to hit the floor? Like, so I think
that was weird.
That immediately confused people. And then I wish there would have been some variety with Wardlow. I wish he would have choked some guys out. He didn't have to powerbomb everybody. And like I said, nitpicking, he didn't even eliminate all those guys at one time anyway, because your shoulders have to be on the back of the mat. But
yeah, I mean, I thought it was a neat visual, but you're absolutely right about the shoulders on the mat thing. That was going to be a hard thing to pull off and do it right. Could they have done it better? Sure. I was a little confused. I was like, why are these people counted out immediately because he knocked him off the apron? Like, people went out of the ring later and then got back in the ring. I didn't really know what's happening, but
yeah, and that just killed the whole segment.
Yeah, they didn't spend a ton of time on it. Get in, get out.
Yeah,
make him look like a badass.
They just need to be careful though, because these, like we've talked about before, these AEW fans are so smart. They'll move on to somebody else real quickly, and they're fickle in that kind of way. So what you don't want to have happen is have any of this momentum that you have going on with Wardlow cool off in any kind of way. So, also shout out, it's cool to see Matt Hughes. That dude was like a huge deal when I was a teenager watching UFC. Although he looked kind of hobbled in there. I was kind of like, oh God, please don't let him try to do something physical.
Yeah, I didn't know who he was because I never watched UFC, but I was like, hey, this dude looks like he might be hurting in some way.
Yeah, he was kind of hurting. But the People's Court thing at the begining, that parody, that was spot on. That was awesome. Yeah, I love it when they do little things like that.
Yeah. So obviously the last match was Young Bucks versus Jurassic Express. We were supposed to have the Hardys in there, but for obvious reasons they were not there. Ladder matches are weird to me. It's weird to see a title be exchanged because you didn't get a pin. But I thought there were some really good spots in this one, and then we got the eventual Christian Cage heel turn, which we'd seen coming for a while. I'm still not sure why they put it on the Bucks. Maybe just, obviously the Bucks versus FTR for a title match would be way better than FTR versus Jurassic Express because, FTR would just mop the floor with Jurassic Express. But Dax put out a tweet right after it that I thought was kind of funny because they're always kind of like, hey, where's our shot? For good reason. But they're like, here we are, number 1 contenders again.
Yeah.
And you can't blame them. But I know they've got a plan in place, and that's part of the routine. Is just, hey, put this tweet out or whatever, and it'll be fine. But I'm a Jungle Boy fan. I like Jungle Boy, so it's kind of tough to see something like that happen to him. I don't know. And I'm not a fan of the Young Bucks as heels. I wish they'd hurry up and get that part over with. But it was a good match. It was a good way to end a show, obviously. Luchasaurus is real hit or miss on when he looks good or when he looks like he's kind of stumbling his way around the ring. I thought he looked pretty good for the most part last night. Super athletic. Took a real nice fall, I thought, off of that ladder into those double tables. What would you think overall of the whole thing?
As it started, and they started getting into the bunch of the high spots and started going through tables and stuff like that, and it was super fast-paced, too. I mean, the athletic ability showcased in this match was just off the charts, and, that's to be expected from these two teams, but the biggest takeaway I had was like, oh, thank God the Hardys weren't in this match, because I think you would have had a very different match if Matt and Jeff would have been in there, just because they would have not been able to keep up that pace because they're in their mid-40s and they've taken a lot of bumps through tables and they just can't move that way anymore. So in just in terms of the match quality, I think it was way better not having them in it. But like I said at the beginning of this podcast, I think the plan was to put the belt on the Hardys just because I can't foresee the Jeff Hardy news changing anything that you were going to do with Jurassic Express. You know what I mean? Like, clearly they had this Christian heel turn already put in place, and it looks like it was going to happen at Road Rager regardless of who won the belt. Like, the Jurassic Express wasn't going to win it because you
Right.
needed the heel turn for Christian. So I think that the plan here was to put the belts on the Hardys and let them have a little bit of shine here before you eventually took them off. And then obviously what happened with Jeff, you have to change course. And so now the Young Bucks are the tag team champions, which I'm not. I am a fan of the Young Bucks, heel or faces. I think they have the way they put together these matches are super creative and super inventive. And if it leads to another clash with FTR over the belts, then man, I'm all for it because we'll get even more classics out of those two tag teams. But, you know, I think we talked, either it was last week or the week before, we talked about the potential of Jungle Boy. And I think it's the right call here. It's the right time to pull the trigger. We need to see Jungle Boy as a singles competitor to see what kind of potential he has here. He is the only one of the pillars who has still been protected in that kind of way. Like, you know, MJF started it off with Cody, but eventually he branched off and did his own thing. Sammy was part of the inner circle, but eventually he branched off and did his own thing. Darby has kind of been a loner since the get-go, right? I mean, that's just part of his personality. Now he is paired up with Sting, but Darby has had nothing but awesome matches and cut really cool promos and really cool vignettes this whole time. Jungle Boy's been the only one that we don't really know what we have in him because he's been a part of this tag team. So you could see the heel turn coming from a mile away, particularly as the camera was just kind of lingering on the Young Bucks, and it was like, oh, we're not going away yet. We're still here. And then when the doctor stepped out, I was like, oh, here it comes. And if there's one guy that can get Jungle Boy over as a singles competitor, this is the perfect place for Christian. He's the guy to do it. And that concerto, I mean, it looks vicious. So I hope what we have here is we have I'm not the biggest Luchasaurus fan either, so I hope we have a disbandment of this tag team here. And I hope Luchasaurus gets out of the mask for his own sake. So, you know, down the road, could we have a psychotic Christian, you know, beats up Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus comes out to try to make the save, and Luchasaurus, you know, ends up getting on the wrong end of another vicious assault by Christian, and he ends up unmasking him and, you know, putting him in the hospital or something like that. I think that would be probably some of the ways that we're going to go here. But, yeah, let's see what we have in Jungle Boy. I'm kind of excited to see. I want to see him cut some promos. He's been protected here, like I said. So let's see what we have in this guy, because if we're going to build him up to be a next kind of superstar and a pillar of this company, he has some tough competition with some of those other guys that we mentioned. But he's young. You know, they talked about he's just now turning, I think he turned 25 today. So, like, he has all the time in the world. But we got to see something. We got to start building this guy up.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's all we've got for that, unless there's anything else you feel we need to touch on from the last week.
No, I think that pretty much covered it. Another solid episode of Dynamite. We're kind of getting spoiled here this month. They've all been pretty solid. Yeah,
and I figure, what have we got? We got one more Dynamite. Yeah, we got the 22nd. So next Wednesday will be the one right before the pay-per-view. So
I would expect an Okada appearance next Wednesday. That's my prediction.
Yeah. Well, I say let's talk about what's done up real good for this.
I got one more thing.
Sure,
to throw out to you. This is a question. I don't have any kind of answer to it. Obviously, this MJF stuff was the biggest thing in wrestling a couple weeks ago, and it's been null on that front ever since. Do we see MJF at Forbidden Door make an interference in the main event? The only reason I say this is because during his pipe bomb-esque promo, he explicitly mentioned New Japan in that promo. And we haven't seen, does he come back and make an appearance and interfere? If he's going to interfere in a match, it's going to be Moxley and Tanahashi. What's your... Do you think that might happen? Do you think they're playing it off? Where are we going with this MJF stuff?
I don't know, man. That's a good question. Because if we're to believe the headlines, it has been mandated that he be removed from the promotional materials and the opening of Dynamite and everything else. So I don't know. I mean, what's his motivation on interfering with a Moxley match? Like, there's not really a history with them.
Yeah, well, the kayfabe explanation would be like, how dare you try to take my spot? Like I said, he's going to be what CM Punk was in 2011, and CM Punk's whole thing was that he was a kind of a revolutionary. He represented something else that was happening in wrestling outside of WWE at that time, because WWE was so homogenized with the corporate type of wrestling, and here was Punk coming in saying, screw all that, I'm going to be the guy. So do we see that with MJF? Fantasy booking here, and of course all fans like to do this. Could we see a thing where MJF ends up costing Jon Moxley the AEW title, and Tanahashi ends up getting the win? And then we do a Moxley MJF, or could we do, how much could we loan Tanahashi for? Could we do MJF and Tanahashi, where MJF ends up winning the interim world title off of Tanahashi? I don't know. I would expect there to be some kind of other. We've gone 2 weeks now without any kind of kernel in this story, and you don't want it to go too long. I don't think, for it to use up to have no kind of steam when it comes back. So I think Forbidden Door here at the pay-per-view, that will be 3 weeks. He's basically off television.
Yeah.
And, he mentioned New Japan. He mentioned not doing the, marky shit of acting like he watches New Japan every single week and likes it. So he would have some kind of vendetta just against the whole thing, right? That here is something that he perceives as being less than him, getting elevated to this status to where it is now main eventing pay-per-views where that should be him, because there is nobody. He said it in that promo. There's nobody better than him. So if I'm the best, I should be seen as the best. I should be on these damn pay-per-views. I should be on these title screens, the opening of the shows, the opening graphics. I should be on all this kind of stuff. So I don't know, just a little kernel out there for people to think about.
Yeah, that's it's not a bad idea. I honestly don't know what they'll do. Because I don't know whether to believe it's all a work or not. I don't know. The longer we go without seeing him, the more I think it might be a little real. But I just don't know what to say about it. I am a little concerned about the number of matches that are announced for the pay-per-view. I think we mentioned in Double or Nothing that was just a little bit too long for a Sunday night.
Yeah, well, just get ready, because it ain't changing. This thing's gonna be it's gonna be 4.5 hours again. It seems like. So,
yeah.
Because if there was any pay-per-view to really let these matches breathe, it's gonna be this pay-per-view with the amount of star power that's in here, just on a global scale. So yeah,
we were lucky that we had the Monday off work after the last one. We don't have that.
Nah, this will be 5 hours, so just get the popcorn ready. Luckily for me, I'm still on paternity leave, so it don't.
Yeah, that's true.
At this point, I don't care. It could be 6 hours. I'm gonna watch this whole thing. So, but anyway, that was the last thing I had, so we can wrap it up here.
Well, tell me what's done up real good for you this week, man.
So, Adam Sandler had a new Netflix movie out called Hustle. I think it came out last week. If your listeners out there are big basketball fans, you'll really like this movie. It's kind of it's a cliched-ridden sports movie, but the performances in it are so good that it kind of rises above those cliches. But what it got me thinking was, and I think I'm working on an article right now for the Alabama Take on this very topic. I think Adam Sandler is like one of the best American actors of all time. And I think he does not get the amount of credit that he deserves, in terms of, particularly for people that are mine and your age, right, or close to our ages. With our friends, like, we could quote, somebody could just throw out a line from Billy Madison, and you would, first of all, what you immediately do is probably laugh, and you would smile, and you would be able to just quote something back, probably in that same scene, because Adam Sandler has so many movies that have just become common in our culture, right? You talk about Billy Madison, you talk about Happy Gilmore, I just rewatched The Wedding Singer. The Wedding Singer, I forgot how awesome that movie is. That movie's great.
Buddy, that movie was funny as shit. It's been forever since I've seen it, but
For listeners of this podcast, if you've never, just go on YouTube and look up the Somebody Kill Me Please song, and you'll fucking laugh your ass off for 3 minutes. Like, it's just great. And then the ending of The Wedding Singer, where the Grow Old With You on the plane with Drew Barrymore, like, that's one of the sweetest scenes that happened in the 90s, like in any type of movie. And now it's kind of the cool thing to be like, oh, Adam Sandler's good, because we've seen Hustle's getting really good reviews. We've seen him in Uncut Gems from 2017, I think, which was really awesome. But I think this dude has just been good for forever. And, like, you can't really fault him for making a bunch of shitty movies. I mean, there's a lot of actors that make shitty movies. Now, he could be, number one ranked of all time in terms of the amount of shitty movies he has made. There's quite a bit of them. But they still they do well at the box office, and, like, he's clearly not taking himself so seriously. So, I looked up a ranking thing online, and who knows where the fuck these ranking things come from, but there was I think it was actually on ranker.com, which, if you're not familiar with that site, is basically where somebody can throw out a topic, or the people of the website will throw out a topic, and then people can go in real time and kind of vote stuff up. And on the list of greatest American actors, just American actors, he was 105 on the list, which you cannot tell me there's 104 other actors in American culture that have made as big of an impact as what Adam Sandler has made. That's just ridiculous. You can't make that argument in good faith. People in front of him were like Kurt Russell. Kurt Russell's great. He ain't fucking Adam Sandler. Like, let's just be real with it. And, people like, Daniel Day-Lewis is a great actor, obviously, but, like, Daniel Day-Lewis couldn't do what Adam Sandler did in Uncut Gems or in this movie Hustle, and he damn sure couldn't do what Sandler did in The Waterboy or Billy Madison or Happy Gilmore. And if listeners are like, oh, but those movies, those are shitty 90s comedies, get over yourself, man. Like, the fucking Waterboy's great, okay? And, like, I don't care what anybody says, that's a 5-star movie. You can quote it all day long, so I could keep going about Adam Sandler, but that's what I'm working on right now. And Adam Sandler, just rewatch, go out there, pick your favorite movie, just watch it and laugh and appreciate what you're watching, which is, when it's all said and done, this dude's going to be one of the greatest actors this country's ever produced. And I will stand by that until the day I die.
So is this one that he, like, wrote and produced, or was this one he just is in? He's
just in it. So it's on Netflix, and so if you remember from a couple years back, he signed a huge lucrative deal with Netflix. Yeah. I think it was like over $300 million. So this is in that type of vein. LeBron James is an executive producer on it. And so, yeah, it's a basketball movie. But you don't have to be a fan of basketball to appreciate it. I mean, Adam Sandler plays a scout that's basically going around the world to try to find the next big NBA star, and he finds this dude in Spain that's playing on just a bunch of outside courts, and really brings him over to the States and tries to get him drafted and put into the NBA. It's just a great performance from Adam Sandler. So
I've just happened to run across the last couple of weekends just flipping channels in some downtime, and I've caught parts of either Billy Madison or Happy Gilmore again, and I hadn't seen either one in forever, and I still fucking love both of those movies. I haven't seen Waterboy in forever, but me and my buddies Jim and Corey constantly fucking quote Billy Madison to this day.
I mean, if you just look at his run from 95 to 99, that's essentially where you have Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore, The Wedding Singer, and The Waterboy. Find me an actor that's had that big of a run with 4 movies straight like that, that's as good as what those movies are. It's going to be tough. It's a very short list of, like, only a handful of people.
Did you ever listen to his albums?
I did, yeah, and that's another thing. Like, he has a stand-up special on Netflix, 100% Fresh. I don't know if you've seen that. It came out a couple years ago. But it's a stand-up made for this generation. Like, it has little short moments of him just, like, doing little short jokes, and then he has music in there. I would encourage listeners, if they haven't seen that, to, like, look up Phone Wallet Keys, the song from that thing, and then he finishes up the special with a redo of grow old with you, that he sings to his wife and to the audience members. So like he's great in terms of acting, in terms of just being a celebrity. He's probably the number one celebrity you want to go have a beer with. Like, I don't know if you want to go have a beer with DiCaprio. Like, DiCaprio's great, but there's like an air of pretension there that he has about himself. So yeah, I mean, Sandler's fucking going on late night shows in basketball shorts and t-shirts, man. Like, he's one of us. So
Love it. I may need to watch that then. I saw somebody else tweeted about it yesterday, maybe.
have you seen Uncut Gems?
I never did see it.
So watch
no.
that first.
Okay.
Watch that. Yeah,
Gotcha.
That's from 2017, the Safdie brothers. That is absolutely amazing. And this dude's been good for forever. Fucking Punch Drunk Love. I don't know if you've seen that one. That movie.
Yeah, I saw that one. It's been forever.
That movie's great. Like he's awesome. So be on the lookout for that if you're an Alabama Take reader. Hopefully Monday or Tuesday I'll have a finished piece up on that.
Sweet. Well, what was done up real good for me lately has been Kenobi, the Disney Plus series. I spent the weekend with some of my boys last weekend, and you know we basically have an entire text thread dedicated to Star Wars. We get into some other stuff, but it's a lot of Star Wars conversation, and you know. Our buddy Corey likes to find plot holes in things, and ever since college, he would always be like, how the hell? We'd like walk out of a movie, and he'd go, how the hell? And then he would launch into, how the hell did this happen or that happen? And he was like, I don't really have any qualms with this show. You know, he was like, I had problems with the Mandalorian, and I had problems with Book of Boba Fett, and blah, blah, blah. He's like, overall, I still loved it because it's Star Wars, but Kenobi has been damn near perfect in my book.
Now that's kind of opposite from the discourse that I've read. So are you?
Yeah.
You're kind of in the minority there, I guess.
Yeah, probably. And here's why: is that nobody hates Star Wars more than Star Wars fans. And when I say Star Wars fans, I mean people my age that are 45. I was 2 weeks old when Star Wars came out. I grew up with Star Wars. I remember seeing Return of the Jedi in the theater. I don't remember if I saw the other two, episodes 4 and 5, in the theater or not. I remember taping them off of like HBO or something. Like a buddy of mine had a recorder before anybody else, and then when my family got a VCR, I had a copy of those movies, right? And I remember the video store calling us because we had put our name on a list to be on hold for Return of the Jedi when it came out on VHS. And, you know, I grew up with the action figures, and the people that hate Star Wars so bad are 45-year-old dudes that only want to watch episodes 4, 5, and 6 over and over again, right? And a lot of us have problems with the prequels, but shows like the Clone Wars have gone in and done a lot of work to make up for some of the shortcomings that happened in the prequels. There's a lot of things you can't undo about the prequels, but that world and that timeline has been expanded through the cartoons, right? And then there's comics and all this other stuff. I haven't gotten way into the comics. I did read some of the comics a few years ago when Jason Aaron was writing, when Star Wars got bought by Disney and then Marvel started putting out Star Wars comics. I did read that. I did read a bunch of the Star Wars and a bunch of the Darth Vader. But, yeah, nobody hates Star Wars worse than Star Wars fans. So that's a lot of the discourse I think you see online, and a lot of the hateful ass people that hated Kelly Tran. I believe his name was Kelly Tran from The Last Jedi, and then they hate the lady that's playing Reva now in Kenobi. That character is fucking awesome, and I think that she's doing a great job in that role. And I just got a text from the boys while we were recording this podcast that says the final episode of Kenobi is going to be 90 minutes long without credits. So that's damn near a whole movie right there. But I think the story is awesome. Obviously, if you haven't watched it at this point, you're 5 weeks behind, and I'm not going to say spoilers, but how they swerved and introduced like a young Leia into the story was great. You know, we didn't see any of that in the trailer. We thought this was all going to be Obi-Wan and the Inquisitors. But it's been a whole lot about young Leia, and I think that's great. Her personality is great. The young lady that's playing Leia is fantastic. I just love where it's going. I don't know exactly what they're going to do in the last episode. I've kind of got an idea, but I'm here for it. I need more of it. I told our boss today, I said, the more that we can get of this era of Darth Vader, the better. Because we've always, you know, we grew up and we were like, Darth Vader's like the ultimate Sith Lord and he's such a badass. But at the time, you know, and the technology, David Prowse wasn't really cutting it as Darth Vader back then, right? But you get to see, I mean, hell, Hayden Christensen is fucking killing it in the Darth Vader suit these days. And then obviously we had the big scene at the end of Rogue One where he just goes through the fucking ship, just fucking killing people, and it's awesome, man. I'm here for it. The more Star Wars for me, the better. Some people don't see it that way, but I don't think you've been watching it, have you?
No, I have a 2.5-year-old who constantly watches everything on Disney Plus. So anytime I get a hold of the remote, I run as far away from Disney Plus as I possibly can.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, I'm the most casual of casual Star Wars fans. I've seen the movies and like Mandalorian, but I don't participate in any of the discourse. It's all kind of, especially the discourse about that happened around Kelly Tran and what's happening now around Moses Ingram. I think it's just kind of fucking stupid, and a lot of these neckbeards that are online just needs to fucking get a life. Yeah.
I try to tune as much of that out as possible. I don't need that shit in my life. I just like Star Wars, man. And here's the thing: is you don't have to fucking watch it.
Right.
You can go back and watch your precious copies of episodes 4, 5, and 6, the original cuts on VHS, if that's what you want. But I'm gonna watch any fucking thing they put out, like plain and simple. I thought The Mandalorian ruled. I really liked Book of Boba Fett a lot. Not as much as Mandalorian, but I liked it quite a bit, and I'm interested to see what they do with the Andor series that's coming out later this year, and then obviously I'm stoked about the Ahsoka series that's been shooting for about 3 or 4 weeks now. So just give me all of it. I can't guarantee you that next week my done up real good for the week won't be Kenobi again as well, because the last episode runs next Wednesday. Well, that's all I got, man. Do you have any other parting thoughts for the week?
Nope, that's it for me.
I think we'll wrap that up, man. We'll be back again every Friday unless something changes. We're still recording remotely right now while Patrick's on paternity leave. Normally, he's in an office right across the hall from me, and we would be talking about wrestling in our offices. So we just decided to start a podcast about it. Unfortunately, the timing on it was not great because by the time we finally got things rolling, his new child was born, so we've been recording remotely. Hopefully we'll be back in the next few weeks recording in person. Please go follow us on Instagram and Twitter if you do those sort of things, at Alabama Slam Pod. You can follow the Alabama Take on Facebook and look us up. We got a TeePublic store for the Alabama Take. We got t-shirts and stuff available there. And give us reviews on iTunes as well. We've been told that sort of thing helps get us up more in the charts and that sort of thing. It's just always helpful. And tell your friends about us if you're a listener and like what we're doing, man. But I think that's all I got for the week, Patrick.
Are you getting arrested? What's happening? Is that you or me?
I thought they were coming to get you, buddy. I hear it in the background. It sounds like it's coming through.
Yeah, they
yours.
might be coming to get me. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Well, y'all be good, man. We'll talk to y'all next week.
Talk to y'all soon. Great pod, Corey.
Thanks.